Okay, the New England Patriots in the last 5 games are 5-0, and they've won those games by an average of 35-10. The Buffalo Bills in the last 5 games are 3-2, and the average score in those games is Bills 29, Foes 18. I'm just saying that the 2 games that the Bills and the Patriots play in a 21-day span from December 6th to December 26th are going to be must-see TV. And whereas we all had ceded the AFC East to the Buffalo Bills before this season, we can no longer do that. And to me, that is the impact of what we saw Thursday night.
17 days away from round 1 of Bills and Patriots on Monday Night Football. Before then, the Patriots have the Tennessee Titans, a prime opportunity to convince anyone who doesn't already believe that Bill Belichick and company are crafting a team that's a potential powerhouse, a real threat in January. I said a couple of weeks ago, if they get to January, no one's going to want to play them. I think we can start scratching out the if now that they're 7-4. And like you said, that run of 150-50 over a 5-game stretch, they are becoming dominant. Last night's game was the crowning achievement. Now they pivot to one of the best teams in the league, currently number 1 on the PFT Power Rankings, which obviously mean absolutely nothing. The Texans play the Titans this weekend. The Titans undoubtedly will get the victory, setting up those 2 games back-to-back for the Patriots to show that they really are a team that's going to be in the mix in January. And you get Bill Belichick in single elimination, Peter. I'd bet on him as quickly as I'd bet on anyone else, especially with everything as compressed as it is this year.
Yeah, and I mean, Mike, one of the things that I would tell you is that you've written about it. It's been written about a lot of places. The fact is that home field advantage in the National Football League, I'm not saying it's disappeared, but it has really gone down in significance. And right now, even if the Patriots are, let's say, the 5th seed in the tournament and have to go on the road, what did Tampa Bay do last year? What have the Giants done a couple of times, in this century? I mean, it isn't what it used to be in the NFL, where the home field was everything. It's really not everything anymore. And the one other thing I would say just about the AFC right now is that I think there are 3 or 4 teams that are truly in flux to the point that we really don't know who they are as we sit here on November 19th. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are in flux. They could go on a run now that their defense has woken up and they played at least one game significantly more efficiently on offense. I think the Buffalo Bills are in flux. We don't really know about the Buffalo Bills now, and they got the benefit last week of playing a horrible team, the Jets. But obviously the Patriots have gotten the benefit of that twice already this year. And the one other thing, I don't think Tennessee's in flux. I think they're going to be tough with or without Derrick Henry. But the one other team that really fascinates me is Baltimore, because I think Baltimore is really, really good, but they go as much as any of these other teams. They go as their quarterback goes. And, right now, I think they've got to get a very consistent and explosive Lamar Jackson for the rest of the way to have a good chance at home field in the playoffs.
This is a season that I think underscores and highlights and puts in all caps the adage of any given Sunday, because not only can any other team beat you any given Sunday, a team that had been good for an extended stretch can somehow fall off, whether it's matchup, whether it's coaching, whether it's just stuff happens. We've seen that just because a team is playing well, it's subject to change at any time with or without notice. It just happens. And that's what has me applying a caveat to my usual belief that somebody's going to get hot late November, early December, and carry it all the way to the postseason, because anybody who gets hot
always happens.
But it can end very quickly, because we've seen these teams that are hot, the plug gets pulled quickly, and you have that happen in January. One bad day in January, and you're done. You can overcome a bad day in October, November, December if your record's otherwise good enough. But you know what happened to the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago. What we've seen happen to some of these teams that we thought were good, like the Bills scoring 6 points in Jacksonville. It's going to make the playoffs more fascinating because the uncertainty is going to be greater than ever. As you said, the home field advantage has dissipated. Look at the Patriots. They're 2-4 at home and 5-0 on the road. You can't really believe in anyone at home. Even the Packers. I mean, I think there is a sense that if the Packers are playing at home, and it's not the Buccaneers, but a team like the Rams or the Cardinals or the Cowboys, they have a real edge. But other than that, there is no edge. There is no advantage. I don't know if last year, with no fans in the stadium, taught teams how to play on the road, but I don't know. But we've seen this weird swinging of the pendulum away from home field advantage, and it defies all logic and all dynamics of being the team that's at home that has a stadium full of loud fans that are a plus for you and a negative for the opposing team.
Mike, I go back to last year when a year ago, right about this time, I don't think there would have been many people, if any, who would have said, yep, the Bucs got a great chance to go to the Super Bowl this year, never mind win it. They were in the midst of a stretch in November where they lost 3 out of 4, and all 3 losses were at home. They got creamed by the Saints and nipped by Tennessee and the Rams. And when that happened, I think everybody said, well, you know, Brady had a good run. He's put up some good numbers, but this is the adjustment year, maybe next year. But it just goes to show you that there's plenty of time for some team out there to get hot, to get healthy, and to get hot. We just don't know who it's going to be this year. I think we could make arguments. Logically, we could make arguments for 10 teams. And we'd be leaving out traditional powers, you know, like Pittsburgh. I think we probably would leave out among those 10 teams that could make a run. The reason why that might be a mistake is that if healthy, that defense can win games the same way that New England's defense can win games. But I think we are set up to have, I think, an incredible home stretch of the last 8 weeks of the regular season.
But that is a great reminder that a team can turn it around. And we won't really know it until it's happening and until it sustains itself. And we're going to be saying, well, look. And it's probably going to best be observed in hindsight because of this possibility that things can and will change very quickly. And all it takes is one game and the balloon gets popped. And, you know, the Patriots could be the one in 9 days whose balloon gets popped by the Tennessee Titans. Although I think it really would be fitting. I said this yesterday. If the Patriots can beat Tennessee, it's kind of like the unofficial launch of Patriots 2.0 because it was Tennessee at New England in the playoffs a couple of years ago that ended Patriots 1.0. And it made it clear that they had to rebuild, they had to reload, they had to reshuffle, and they've done all of those things. Sims is a believer that we're seeing 2001 all over again, where Bill Belichick has found a team that performs the way he wants it to, a defense that's sufficiently versatile to counter any offensive style or system that they may face, and then an offense that is based on the run and has a quarterback who's a robot. He's a robot, just like Brady was early in his career. Just does what he's told. What are you going to do? Does what he's told. He's programmed to go do this, and he moves like it. He looks like it, like somebody's on the sideline. They used to have joysticks. Now they have controllers, but somebody's controlling him remotely to do exactly what Josh McDaniels wants him to do.
Mike, in 2001, and here you'll see Mac Jones make a lot of pretty throws, I assume. But in 2001, let me just remind everybody, that was his best play of the night, by the way. Duron Harmon, untouched, coming right up the barrel. And he converts a third down right there with the pass to Jacoby Myers. Now that tells you about everything you need to know about this quarterback, about Mac Jones. But let me just get back to one thing about 2001. The Patriots that year, and I'm going to be wrong on the numbers a little bit, but they signed 17 unrestricted free agents that year for a total of about $23 million. They didn't have cap money. They didn't have any money to spend to go out and really hit the market. So they basically signed guys, a bunch of guys like Antoine Smith and Otis Smith and a bunch of guys who ended up being contributors on their 2001, their first Super Bowl team. But this is a little bit different this year. But the one thing that you notice, okay, they jettisoned Stephon Gilmore rather than pay him whatever it would have been to keep him, but somewhere in the range of $10 million or so a year. Okay, because Belichick had this thought: I've got a really good secondary, and I've got a really good defense. I'm okay. What I want to do now is I want to have the freedom right now to be able to keep a lot of these free agents we signed, the 2 tight ends, and not just make them be, 1 or 2 and done. He wants to keep those guys. And I think that was the whole idea with the rebuilding of the team this offseason. Don't just go out and make a couple of explosive signings and think, okay, after a year or two, we'll get rid of these guys. Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, Belichick really hopes, and the Patriots hope, can be 4, 5, 6-year players in New England as sort of a core to what the Patriots used to do with the tight end position when they had Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez both in their primes. But overall, this is a lot like it, just like what Chris Sims says. It's a lot like the old days where they have a lot of players who don't make a lot of money, but who are climbing the ladder and who are really good at their position.
And initially, it was the defense that drove the bus for the Patriots team that won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years from 2001 through 2004. Let's hear from Bill Belichick and a couple of his current defensive stars on last night's shutout, the 13th that Belichick has had as coach of the Patriots.
I think these guys play well together. We use a lot of different personnel groupings. They communicate well together, play with good communication and anticipation.
I don't want to brag too much, but I feel like we got one of the best defenses in the league right now. I mean, this is a big game. I mean, defense played outstanding. Like, I can't even describe, but we got to keep it up. It's going to get scary. It's going to be scary.
No, we kind of want to be a-holes on the field with good guys off the field and make sure we don't get penalized. We play within the rules, but we a nasty group. So that's how we like to play, and that's how we got to play in order for our team to win. And we enjoy it.
That was J.C. Jackson first, and then Matthew Judon. Get to know those guys if you don't already. We know Judon from his time with the Ravens. He ended up being a great signing by the Patriots. J.C. Jackson, a guy who's going to command a big contract and or a tough decision by the Patriots after the season. But this defense has gotten better and better, and they're just going about their business. And, what happens, Peter, we write narratives in September, and we assume that those narratives are going to hold. And the narrative on the Patriots was, oh, well, nice try. Oh, well. Oh, well, it's going to take a while. Oh, well, no playoffs for you this year. Oh, well, can't win a game at home. Oh, well, tried to beat Tommy and you came up short. That was kind of the moment everything changed for the Patriots, losing that game. They've been unstoppable since then, other than the loss to the Cowboys that they should have won, and they took them toe-to-toe, could have won, did everything they could to outscore a team that was better at the time. I don't know how much better it is now, but this is Bill Belichick. This is why he's one of the greatest of all time, and this is why we need to have them at the very center of those teams that we think could get hot or stay hot and carry it all the way into February.
You know, a few other thoughts about just the Patriots after watching them last night, Mike. Number one, you know, I've often thought that Belichick's got a good shot to pass Don Shula. He's got to coach maybe 4 more years. And I now think, barring some health problem, he's definitely going to pass Don Shula. And he'll be the winningest coach of all time. That's one thing. And I think the one other thing about this should be an eternal verity among agents and among college quarterbacks. Okay? And you know, I know this is going to sound illogical. Okay? But I think if there's any way a quarterback can attempt to do this, okay, however he tries to do it, whether it be maybe by being, as Matt Juden said, a little bit of an a-hole in the pre-draft process. If I were a great quarterback, or if I were an agent for a great quarterback, I would just say, look at what's happened in the last few years. Look at what's happened with 3 quarterbacks in the last few years. Number one, what happened to Patrick Mahomes? A team with a pick low in the first round that fell in love with him, traded up to get him. That team was not bereft of talent. That was the Kansas City Chiefs, and all they needed was a successor to Alex Smith in Andy Reid's mind to be great for a long time. So that is number one. Number two, Lamar Jackson. He is the 5th quarterback picked in that really good quarterback draft 4 years ago. And what happens after he's or 3 years ago? And what happens after he's that 5th quarterback picked? He lands in a perfect situation with the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm not saying that Mac Jones would not have done well in San Francisco, because I do think he would have done well. But there's no question when he got drafted by New England, he was going to do well and was going to go to a perfect place. Not only with Bill Belichick running the program and putting a great team around him, but with an excellent play designer, schemer, and play caller in Josh McDaniels, who sat at the right hand of Tom Brady for these many years. So just a little bit of advice to all the big agents out there who've got these. There's a great quarterback at Pitt this year. There's a really good quarterback at North Carolina. I don't know these guys, but there's these great quarterbacks. And in my mind, I'm not saying that they can force teams at the top of the draft who need a quarterback to not pick your guy, but you ought to do everything in your power to try not to get picked very high in the draft. You'll make it up on your 2nd and 3rd contracts.
Hey, Peter, I'm glad you say that, because, you know, that's one of my crusades as it relates to the draft, that players should have some say, full say, frankly, in where they play. And we don't see enough power plays being made by the Eli Mannings and the John Elways of the world. And you and I know of a power play that was almost made a couple of years ago that drives certain people crazy when it gets mentioned, but it does get considered. The execution is the challenge because the teams hold all the cards. What are you ultimately going to do? Sit out a full year, re-enter the draft, and run the risk of it happening again? The only way you truly become a free agent entering the NFL is to either not be drafted at all or sit out 2 full years after you've been drafted. But you're right. Where a quarterback starts his career, in many ways, determines not just the start, but also the finish. Look at Josh Rosen. And I'm not saying Josh Rosen would have become a star quarterback.
This is one of the saddest stories I ever remember, really. Think about it.
But a top 10 pick, the Cardinals traded up to get him at number 10. And he wasn't horrible. Now, the team was bad enough that they secured the rights to the first overall pick the next year, and they took Kyler Murray, and they threw him overboard to the Dolphins. And the Dolphins gave him a shot, and they threw him overboard. And now he's kind of bounced around. He was on the Buccaneers practice squad last year, signed with the 49ers active roster because he thought, hey, well, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. Maybe I can learn this Kyle Shanahan system. And now he's a backup to Matt Ryan in Atlanta and finally got a chance to play a little bit last night, and it didn't go well. But I don't know how different it would have been for him. We need an alternate universe to see what would have happened if some other team would have drafted him and stuck with him and developed him. But at some point, it's not about the kid. It's about the circumstance. So you're right. And a bad circumstance to start your career can put a dark cloud over a guy that never goes away.
I forget if this was after either the second or third Super Bowl that he won. But I talked to Tom Brady about a week after whichever game that was, and I should remember it, and I just don't. And I asked him, did you ever wonder what it might have been like if you got picked, if you got drafted by a bad team? And I probably named some bad teams at the time. And he said, yeah. He said, I have thought about that, and I'll tell you, I'd probably be on my second or third team right now if I were still in the league. Because what happens if you're a sixth-round pick and you get drafted by a bad team? Who knows if you're ever going to get a chance? Here is the big myth, by the way, of the Tom Brady story. Big myth. And that is that, like in Seth Wickersham's book, which is utterly fantastic, in Seth Wickersham's book, he writes a story about how Mike Riley, then the coach of the San Diego Chargers, desperately wanted Brady. And he was working on Bobby Beathard. He thought he was going to get him. And then Beathard took another guy in the 6th round, and the Patriots took him. And Mike Riley was crestfallen. But here's the problem. There's been stories over the years. The Giants had a scout, Whitey Walsh, who really was banging the table to get Tom Brady. But the whole issue is, do you know what happened in New England in 2001? Tom Brady was so good in training camp in 2001 that Bill Belichick was thinking at some point, if they didn't win that year, of playing Tom Brady. And so he loved him. And so the whole key is to take a guy who is a firm believer in this ethos, which is, I don't care where you're drafted. You show up here and play and practice. If you're better than the other guy, you get to play. Now, every coach says that. I haven't met a lot who would have really thought seriously of benching the highest paid player in football for the 199th player picked in the draft. But Bill Belichick was thinking of that. And all I can say is all these other places that say that, and we can talk about Josh Rosen, but the fact is you need a coach who believes in Josh Rosen, and he never has had that.
Well, and you also need a structure above that coach that lets the coach, if he so desires, throw overboard the $100 million guy and go with the 199th pick. In so many of these organizations, even though the owners will say, well, I don't make football decisions, their fingerprints are all over the decisions. The pressure is on the coach and the GM who wants to continue to work for that owner to do what the owner wants, while the owner also maintains plausible deniability, whether it's blaming Johnny Manziel's drafting on a homeless guy, whether it's Stephen Ross acting like he had nothing to do with Deshaun Watson until they decided not to take Deshaun Watson off the Texans' hands. And Ross is like, I decided not to do this. Well, I thought you didn't make football decisions. So you need a coach that has the freedom to make that decision. And we saw it this year. Not that they gave big money to Cam Newton, but they re-signed Cam Newton with the anticipation he's going to be the starter. Then they get Mac Jones, and they make the assessment right before the start of the season. Number one, Mac Jones can get it done. Number two, we can't have Cam Newton hanging around undermining Mac Jones by his very presence. Because Cam Newton, shocker, folks, he's still got it. Just because the Patriots cut him doesn't mean he has nothing at all. We saw it last week, 2 touchdowns on 9 snaps. But I mentioned Mac Jones. Let's hear from him about the offense right now as it stands 11 weeks into the season with a rookie at the helm who is looking like anything but a rookie.
They emptied the clip on what they were going to try and bring against us, and they did a good job on the defensive side, and we can do better on offense. So we'll do that, and it all just starts with watching the film, and it's a short week, but there's no excuses. We can play better, and we will. We have a great group of guys, and early on, you're just trying to figure your way out with, me in there, and I'm trying to learn as best I can, but these guys have all played tons of football, and I trust everybody on our offense, and I feel like I can play better to, help them too. So they've done a great job all year staying positive, and we all believe in each other, and that's the most important part. It's the best team sport there is, and I think our offensive unit really has that family feel to it, and we love each other, and we play together, and we play for each other. So we just have to keep doing that.
Not to make too hard of a right turn here, but do you wonder if Odell Beckham Jr. was watching that game last night thinking, they wanted me. They wanted me, and I didn't want them. Look, hey, the Rams may still end up winning the Super Bowl, and maybe it'll be Rams-Patriots again 3 years after it was in Atlanta, but they got something clicking on both sides of the ball. They've got balance. Not a lot of teams have true balance. Not a lot of teams have the flexibility to come up with whatever game plan they need to come up with in order to win a game. And I guess the one challenge would be, and maybe they'll come up against a team that can do this, just really shut down the run. Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson can't do anything, and it's all got to be Mac Jones throwing the ball, and maybe that's when the Patriots, as we currently see them, cool off. But they've got the formula, and it's the cold weather formula, the stout defense and the running game and throwing it when you have to and sometimes when you want to. And, it's the right time of year to have that kind of approach on both sides of the ball, Peter.
Hey, Mike, you know what I noticed last night, especially with these running backs? They really looked fresh last night, the Patriots running backs. This Stevenson is going to be a really good player, I think, for a long time. And I just thought earlier this week, remember Devin McCourty said to have to play Sunday and then to turn around and play Thursday, it sucks, or whatever, however he phrased that. I think that was the word he used. But I remember, Mike, one time we were in the NBC viewing room, and after a Packers game where they had to turn around and play a Thursday night game, might have been at Thanksgiving, might have been just their Thursday night appointment, because everybody's got one. And he told me, he said, I'm one of the few guys who actually like Thursday night games. And he said, I think a lot of our players like it too, because on the back end, in the middle of the season, they get 3 or 4 days off. And he said that is a really underrated part. If somehow you can survive that Thursday game, like I bet Devin McCourty wakes up today and says, man, I don't have to be in now until Monday afternoon. I don't know what the Patriots are, but a lot of teams will say, okay, see you guys Monday at 1 o'clock and we'll watch the film and blah, 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 whatever. But they now have a very physical opponent, Tennessee, and they have now 10 days before that Tennessee game. And then on the other side of that, a full week before they play the Buffalo Bills. So I don't know about you, but if I were Bill Belichick, maybe I wouldn't announce it publicly, but I'd be pretty darn happy that we had that our Thursday night game this year was actually the Thursday night game before we played 2 of the most physical games we'd have to play all year.
And they didn't overlook the opponent last night as they await the Titans and the Bills. And, Peter, one of the things we mentioned this week that would have been very convenient and obvious for Bill Belichick to remind his players of last year on their Sunday going into a Thursday night game, they won 45-0 over the Chargers. 45-0. Even better than this year's 45-7 over the Browns. And then what happened Thursday night? The Rams ran all over them, and they lost 24-3. It was a huge, dramatic swing for the Patriots. So they just went through it last year where you have a great Sunday, short week, and you get your asses kicked on Thursday night. So that was probably a little something else that Belichick could use to keep them focused. And they haven't had their bye week either. They don't have their bye until after that Bills game. So they need this. They need this breather as they gather themselves for the Titans. And it sets up well. And I know that the Patriot fatigue has not subsided. Sorry. What can we do?
Yeah,
all we can do is
know.
watch the games and see how it all plays out. But this year, they.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.